Hi, I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, as President Obama gets briefed on the surge at the border in Texas, protesters gather here at the border in San Ysidro. Also tonight, investigators say the Cocos fire was deliberately set, and they say they have an arson suspect.
I'm Peggy Pico. Also ahead, consumer borrowing continues to climb, what it means to the San Diego economy and how to avoid overspending. Plus, UC San Diego leads the new CalBrain initiative for mapping the human brain, why it's important for patients and local researchers.
And there's a bit of a battle going on over the road circling Fiesta Island in Mission Bay. Tonight, we'll hear who's complaining about road closures and who isn't. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. Investigators have identified a juvenile as the suspect in the most destructive of the May wildfires here in San Diego. The Cocos fire burned 36 homes in San Marcos. Sheriff's deputies say it was deliberately set. They are not identifying the teenager, but say a hearing is scheduled for July 30th. They also say the suspect is not linked to any other fires. Marine veteran Andrew Tamarisi is getting his day in a Mexican court. He was arrested back in March after bringing guns across the border. His arrest sparked protests. He said the crossing was a mistake. If he is convicted, he could face 10 years in prison. District Attorney Bonnie Dumanis has released a controversial letter. It was written for the son of a man accused of making illegal contributions to her mayoral campaign. Dumanis sent the letter to the University of San Diego on behalf of Edward Susumo Azano. His father is a wealthy Mexican businessman, Jose Suso Azano Matsura, who you see here. Dumanis says she didn't know either of the Azanos, but wrote the letter at the request of former police officer Ernie Encinas, who pleaded guilty to helping Azano pour about $600,000 into local campaigns. Political donations, of course, from foreign nationals are illegal. KPBS and other news outlets have been trying to get the letter for 6 weeks. Today, Dumanis released it to TV station KUSI.
Do you regret now that you wrote this letter?
Well, what do you think? Of course I do. If I had known when I wrote the letter what I know today, I certainly wouldn't have wanted to write the letter. But this was just another letter in the context of a lot of different people, and there was no reason not to write the letter at the time. I found out when you found out about this complaint and this illegal activity in January 2014. So, you know, I think what concerns me the most is that the media is so focused on this letter and me that they're not focusing on those people who violated the law, who've been charged with crimes, and in fact, 2 of them have pled guilty.
DA Bonnie Dumanis talking with KUSI this morning. Of course, you can find the letter and our coverage of the illegal donations case on our website, kpbs.org. A federal judge says San Diego and its police officers cannot be held liable in a negligence suit related to former officer Anthony Arevalos. He was convicted of assaulting women during traffic stops in the Gaslamp Quarter downtown. One victim sued, claiming the city failed to train and supervise its employees. The lawsuit is scheduled for trial next month. Disgraced San Diego Congressman Randy Duke Cunningham is now a free man. A judge released him from federal monitoring 2 years ahead of schedule. Cunningham resigned from the House and went to prison for 7 years for taking bribes from defense contractors. He won't be coming back to San Diego, though. He's bought a house in Arkansas and will live there. President Obama traveled to Texas today, meeting with Governor Rick Perry about the wave of migrant children coming to the border from Central America. 57,000 since October. Obama says Congress has the ability to act immediately.
The problem here is not a major disagreement around the actions that could be helpful in dealing with the problem. The challenge is Congress prepared to act, to put the resources in place to get this done? Another way of putting it, and I said this directly to the governor, is, are folks more interested in politics or are they more interested in solving the problem?
Yesterday, Obama sent Congress a funding request for $3.7 billion to help handle the surge. A state lawmaker wants Governor Brown to do something about migrants possibly going to Murrieta. Protests turned away the first 3 busloads, you may recall, last week, and no others have been sent there. Assemblywoman Melissa Melendez wants Brown to contact Homeland Security to find out how long they might use the Murrieta Border Patrol Station. She also wants the governor to provide state resources to ensure public safety. So far, no response from the governor's office. A jury says the Los Angeles Dodgers are partially liable in an attack on a Giants fan outside Dodger Stadium. Brian Stowe suffered brain damage after the 2011 attack. He sued the Dodgers for negligence. Today, the jury awarded him $18 million in damages, but the Dodgers are only responsible for a quarter of that. The rest will be split between the 2 men convicted of beating him. The jury also absolved the former Dodgers owner, Frank McCourt. Highway Patrol is promising a swift investigation of this incident last week along the 10 freeway in Los Angeles. They say they'll get it done in weeks rather than the months it would usually take. The woman suffers from a mental disorder and is recovering at a hospital. CHP hasn't identified the officer, but say he's on desk duty now. Congresswoman Maxine Waters says he should be fired. No deal for Scripps Research Institute and the University of Southern California. They were talking about a merger or possible acquisition. Scripps says the talks ended mutually. Some Scripps staffers were unhappy about the possibility of a merger. The Federal Reserve says consumer borrowing continues to increase, a positive sign the economy is moving in the right direction. Peggy Pico takes a look at how San Diego is benefiting.
Economists are celebrating the April and May surge in consumer borrowing. And though the pace has slowed down a bit, it continues to climb. Here to tell us more about the benefits and possible drawbacks of the surge is Sandag's chief economist, Marnie Cox. Welcome back.
Thank you, Peggy.
Now, Marnie, what does this increase in consumer borrowing actually mean for national and San Diego economies?
Well, most economists read it as an indicator that people are feeling more comfortable to borrow as opposed to paying out of their earnings in order to consume, which is a good sign. Usually that means that they expect their job to last, they expect their earnings to go up, and they're comfortable with their outstanding debt. There are some concerns that are still out there today.
And we will definitely get to those. Do you think it's that it's been so long and things are slightly rising and in fueling this kind of confidence that you were talking about?
Well, I think the rising confidence is associated with declining unemployment rate, the high number of jobs that are being generated per month. Those kinds of things are all good indicators of confidence.
Let's talk about personal credit. During the recession, lenders really tightened up their belts, and it was hard to get credit. Has that changed?
Not so much. It's starting to change a little bit today, but it's still hard. Your credit score, if you're going to buy a car or you're going to buy a house or something, you still have to have a good credit score. And a lot of people are not qualifying for the prime interest rates or lowest down payments if you don't have a good credit score. So it's still very, very having a significant impact on people who would like to borrow and take out credit.
And they're not qualifying because of the recession and maybe losing their homes or having bad credit for whatever happened during the recession?
Yeah, a number of the people who either weren't able to pay their revolving credit, or secondly, as you pointed out, they may have mortgage loans they weren't able to make. Heaven, maybe they've lost their house. All of those people have low credit scores today.
I know auto manufacturing and housing markets were really hard hit by the recession. What's the borrowing situation in those two industries?
In which of the industries?
Auto manufacturing and housing.
Actually, auto is hitting new highs. About 17 million units were sold this previous year. That's a new high. Went down during the recession to about 14 million, so a lot of people are out buying new cars. That's because the average age is about 10 years, so they've got to have replacement, and interest rates are low. You've seen some of the banks offering 2% or less, sometimes 0 for 60 months from car dealers.
And let's talk about the housing. And I know San Diego Association of Realtors said that home sales have been climbing. So how is that impacting this sort of consumer confidence?
We have a little ways more to go on the sales side or purchases of new homes. They have begun to increase, and prices have increased faster than the sales, for example. And that's because there's limited inventory that's out there. But I think that what we'll see in the future, if there's continued limited inventory, and right now a good example of that was the number of permits that have been authorized, They've increased to about 8,200 this previous year off of a base of about, in 2010, of about 3,000. So they have gone up, but we're expecting them to get to 12 to 13,000 before they ever get back up to the place where we think they would be normal. So they have more to go. That means there's limited inventory. Prices will probably continue to rise, but probably not at the pace that they've been going over the last couple of years.
Let's talk a little bit about credit card spending, getting back to the borrowing, now the spending. Has that gone up? Are people buying more?
Yes, they are. And in fact, part of the reason for this debt going up is they're spending not only what their earnings are, but they're spending more than what they're earning. So there's long-term debt being taken out in order for people to consume more.
And that leads me to this last question here. Wages in San Diego are still stagnant. The cost of living here continues to climb. What are the dangers in increased consumer borrowing?
Yeah, this debt side says they may be feeling a little more comfortable, but the sort of wave or the red flags are the quality of job growth and wage increases. Quality of job growth has been relatively poor. About 40% of it has been part-time jobs. And then wages have gone up less than 2% per year, so the last 4 years in a row.
Is there, if you had to say one takeaway message for consumers, maybe your confidence is up, but when it comes to borrowing, is there a formula that you would guide somebody with? Yeah,
don't take out more in terms of debt than what you can pay back based upon your earnings growth. Don't go into equity. Don't go into your savings account and assume that that's going to continue to grow over time. Stay within your earnings potential.
So use your earnings to buy consumer goods and then credit for other things. All right, economist Marnie Cox, thank you very much.
Thank you, Peggy.
As attention to an influx of immigrants mounts, one San Diego group is fighting what it calls a lack of accountability among Border Patrol agents. KPBS video journalist Katie Shulove brings us the story from the San Ysidro border.
4 months ago, ex-Marine Carlos Romero was detained at the border for 3 hours before being allowed to cross into the U.S. He says it's happened 9 more times since then, all because someone with his same name committed a crime in Iowa.
That's incredible how they do not do their job. They say it's our fault to live in Mexico, you know. They're saying it's your fault because you come across.
Romero is a U.S. citizen. He lives in Tijuana but comes to the U.S. every day to work and bring his kids to school. Border residents like Romero are the reason that 10 members of the San Diego Immigration Rights Consortium were standing at the San Ysidro border crossing Wednesday. They're protesting what they say are abuses that Customs and Border Protection agents commit against those crossing the border legally.
Hello, we're talking to border residents about their rights.
Ricardo Favela is the group's communications director.
People are asking for basic dignity and respect, you know, to not be treated as criminals. We've seen American citizens, we've seen migrants, different people who have experienced abuses and brutality and even fatalities due to excessive use of force.
As people streamed across the border, the group handed out flyers informing people of their rights. Some people signed postcards that will be sent to the White House, calling for more accountability within CBP and reforms, such as better training and cameras to be worn by the agents. CBP said in a statement that they do not tolerate corruption or abuse within their ranks, and that the overwhelming majority of CBP employees and officers perform their duties with honor and distinction. Similar rallies were organized Wednesday in the border regions of Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. Katie Shulove, KPBS News.
Fiesta Island is a great spot for some athletic clubs to train away from cars. All they need is a permit to shut down the road for a couple of hours. The city says it's gotten hundreds of complaints about the road closures, so it cut the number of permits in half. But KPBS reporter Claire Trageser tells us she hasn't been able to find anyone who actually complained.
The Triathlon Club of San Diego has been holding swimming, biking, and running races on Fiesta Island for 30 years. But club president Stephen Bannister found out this year would be different.
Back in November, we went and applied for permits for Fiesta Island, and we're told that the entire year was full and there was no opportunity to permit for any events on Fiesta Island.
The club's races are meant to help triathlon beginners get used to biking and swimming in big groups. During the races, the road that circles Fiesta Island is usually closed between 6 and 9 a.m.
It's better not to have that interaction between cars and bikes, and that's something that's really unique about Fiesta Island, is it's one of the few places you can go and really get away from cars.
Bannister was able to negotiate for 3 races. They normally have 12. This is because of a vote last July by the Mission Bay Park Committee, which advises the city's Parks and Recreation Department. The committee decided to cut in half the number of weekends Fiesta Island's road could be closed. A meeting recording is not available, but according to meeting minutes, city staff told the committee that there were a lot of complaints about how often the island road is closed. KPBS asked for records of these complaints and was told the city doesn't keep them. But we got a list of 7 groups who had complained. So KPBS talked to the leaders of the groups. They said they had never complained to the city.
But I've never formally filed a complaint with the city about it.
Chance Adair is the coach of the San Diego Dragon Boat team. Though she's never complained, she says the reduced road closures do make it easier for her team to get to the water.
So it became a very taxing opportunity for us to keep a solid practice schedule going. And we like to get in here every weekend in order for just for the club practices and club purposes, as well as training for upcoming races.
We asked the city why they were saying these groups complained when they didn't. Parks and Recreation spokesman Bill Harris says another person in each group might have called to complain.
Representing themselves as being participants. And we would have taken that information down and kept a record of that.
But group leaders say no one would have complained without their knowing. Harris later clarified in an email how his department, quote, kept a record of the people calling to complain, despite not keeping records of complaints. He says they're, quote, mostly verbal and aren't retained. Harris also says the city told groups who use the island about the change in policy.
We really do believe that we were able to talk to just about everybody who had a stake out there.
But none of the groups interviewed by KPBS knew what had happened until after the reduction in use permits was made. In fact, even though the change was made a year ago, most groups didn't know about it until KPBS told them.
And it wasn't actually until I got contacted that I thought, you know what, that's right. There hasn't been that many.
Adair says the only time she spoke with someone from the city about the change was when a city staffer called her last month to say we wanted to interview her. This despite the fact that the San Diego Dragon Boat team was listed as one of the organizations that complained. While none of the groups complained to the city about the number of road closures, a few leaders would say something to city employees when events creeped past the scheduled road closure times. The change was made on a 9-month trial basis, but Harris with the city says he expects it will stick.
Everything that I've seen and everything that we've talked about as staff shows that it's working pretty well and that there really is a lot more use of the park by a lot more people in those hours.
Bannister, the head of the Triathlon Club, says the sharp cutback is especially painful because Fiesta Island is widely recognized as the birthplace of triathlons. And this year is the sport's 40th birthday.
I don't think we're going anywhere as a club, but it sure hurts to have, you know, the birthplace of the sport taken away as a venue.
Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
California's latest budget includes research money to help map the human brain. Peggy Pico explains how the new program fits into a national initiative.
UC San Diego scientists were instrumental in the National Brain Mapping Initiative, and now the state program called CalBrain, short for California Blueprint for Research to Advance Innovations in Neuroscience. Joining me with what this means to local researchers and patients is UC San Diego professor and scientist Ralph Greenspan, director of the Center for Brain Activity Mapping. Welcome.
Thank you.
Now, Ralph, the CalBrain program will get an initial allocation of $2 million. What are the goals of this program?
Well, the long-term goal is developing new ways of seeing in much greater detail and much faster what is happening overall in the brain. And in the initial year, we are hoping that we can have some pilot projects to show that we can do that.
Now, you helped launch both of these initiatives. What is the connection between CalBrain and the National Brain Initiative?
Well, the personal connection is that the two of us who've been important in both of them were my own role and that of Paul Alivasatos, the director of the Lawrence Berkeley Lab. But in terms of their content, we hope that the California initiative will be able to be more effective in carrying out the goals of the federal one because of how good we are in California at innovating and working together.
Is it because you think we already have the infrastructure here and other places across the nation might have to develop that?
It's more that we have the culture for how to do that kind of thing.
I see. What does mapping the brain actually mean in layman's terms?
Well, it means literally being able to see in real time, broadly, in high detail, what the brain is doing, even in split-second things like when you recognize a face or suddenly remember something, which we now cannot do at that level.
Well, we know where some of that activity takes place in the brain, right? So this would be more about discovering the process?
Yes, the dynamics and all of the subtle interactions that go on among the billions of nerve cells that we have that actually produce these events.
There are, of course, many devastating brain diseases and disorders, including Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, PTSD. How do you envision mapping the brain will impact the way we understand and treat these types of disorders?
For psychiatric disease, it will really be our first glimpse into what is truly going wrong in those diseases and hope to help us design better ways of treating them. For diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, it will give you the first possible hint that something is going wrong so that drugs that are designed to stop the process can start acting as early as possible.
And who else might benefit from the CalBrain program? I guess I'm asking what kind of a return on investment are you anticipating?
Well, there are already companies, such as Qualcomm here in town, who have invested a great deal of money in designing computer architectures and chips that work on the same principles as the brain. The more they know about how the brain does it, the better those will be.
In the world of research, $2 million really isn't a whole lot of money. How will the money be used this year, and what's the outlook for funding in the future?
Well, we're very excited that they did that because it's an indication of their interest in moving ahead on it. And the way it will probably start, and it's only just now being worked out exactly how this will occur, is to seed some pilot projects towards starting to form the teams of scientists and get some preliminary results towards this.
And then, so in seeding those projects, are we going to be coordinating with other hub areas, let's say up in the Bay Area, in California, and with the national project?
We hope so, yes. And the idea is for it to be statewide, and we hope that the teams will be broad enough to include the best people to make the best team.
Where does the national brain mapping, the Brain Initiative stand?
They have now started to provide their first funds for people, having had their first call for proposals, and it's too soon to see the results of it yet. And they've also requested, I think, twice as much money for it this next year as they had in the first year. So it's just getting launched.
Well, I hope you will keep us up to date on this. Certainly exciting. Ralph Greenspan, thank you very much.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
The city and county are urging San Diego homeowners to plug into PACE, a new loan program to help reduce energy and water use while saving consumers money. A wide range of products are available, including heating and cooling systems, solar panels, and energy-efficient windows and insulation. Supervisor Diane Jacobs says the loans are repaid through property tax assessments, giving homeowners another option to pay for energy upgrades.
So if you sell your home, the costs go with the property, not with the homeowner. The second difference from what's being offered out there today is the fact that there's a wide range of energy and water saving methods that you can use.
Homeowners repay the assessment over 5 to 20 years. The program has been available to commercial property owners for years. PACE is now expanding to help homeowners looking to go green.
I'm Gwen Eiffel on the next news hour, the latest on the battle for control of Ukraine as government forces step up their attacks on separatists. That's Wednesday on the PBS NewsHour.
It's been nearly 50 years since the Beatles played in San Diego, and now Paul McCartney is coming back. He'll be playing at Petco Park on September 28th as part of his world tour. He'll be doing new music and old favorites. Sir Paul hasn't performed in San Diego since 1976. Tickets go on sale next week, ranging from $23 to $253. More warm weather for us over the next few days. A mix of sun and clouds expected along the coast. Temperatures mostly in the mid to upper 70s. It'll also be in the 80s for the inland valleys with a mix of sun and clouds. Clearing back to mostly sunshine by afternoon. Sunny in the mountains, temperatures there also in the 80s, as you can see there. And it will be hot and sticky in the desert, temperatures well above 100. Let's recap our top stories now. Investigators have identified a juvenile as the suspect in the most destructive of the May wildfires in San Diego. The Cocos Fire burned 36 homes in San Marcos. Sheriff's deputies say it was deliberately set. They are not identifying the teenager, but say a hearing is scheduled for July 30th. They also say the suspect is not linked to any other fires. President Obama traveled to Texas today, meeting with Governor Rick Perry about the wave of migrant children coming to the border from Central America, 57,000 since October. Obama says Congress has the ability to act immediately.
The problem here is not a major disagreement around the actions that could be helpful in dealing with the problem. The challenge is Congress prepared to act, to put the resources in place to get this done? Another way of putting it, and I said this directly to the governor, is, are folks more interested in politics or are they more interested in solving the problem?
Of course, we have more on the immigration story and the rest of the day's news on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.